For decades, the world has been fighting a global war against a devastating virus. And we've been winning, pushing it back from almost every corner of the globe. Today, victory is literally in sight. But here's the thing. This final 1% of the fight, it's by far the hardest part. So let's dive into the final chapter of polio eradication.
First up, let's just talk about what's at stake here. Look at this number, $1.71 trillion. Let that sink in for a second. That's the estimated economic gain in India alone from 3 decades of fighting polio. You see, wiping out this disease isn't just a win for public health, it is a monumental economic victory.
And behind those trillions of dollars, well, that's where the real story is, the human impact. We're talking about almost 4 million children who were saved from lifelong paralysis. Nearly 400,000 people who are alive today because of this effort. This is the prize. This is what we're all fighting to protect.
So, if the benefits are so obvious, and we are so close, 99.9% of the way there, what's the holdup? What makes this last tiny fraction of a percent so incredibly difficult to conquer? Well, it involves hunting an invisible enemy and waging a campaign on some of the world's most challenging terrain. Okay, so first things first, you have to actually find the virus. And to do that, you need something like a global polio detective agency. I'm talking about a massive, intricate network of experts whose entire job is to track down every last trace of this virus, no matter where on Earth it might be hiding. Their number one tool is something called acute flaccid paralysis surveillance, or AFP surveillance. Now think of it like casting the widest possible net. Anytime a child under 15, anywhere, shows signs of sudden paralysis for any reason, the system immediately kicks into gear to check if it's polio. This is the gold standard for making sure not a single case slips through the cracks.
And this detective work follows a really specific 4-step process. First, find and report the case. Second, you got to get 2 stool samples to a lab. Third, scientists isolate the virus itself. And fourth, they actually map its genetic code to figure out exactly where it came from. It's like a high-tech manhunt on a microscopic scale.
But that second step, transportation, is a massive logistical nightmare. They call it the reverse cold chain. You see these coolers? They're carrying samples that have to stay chilled and get to a lab, which could be hundreds of miles away, in under 72 hours. The clock is always ticking. Because if that sample gets too warm, the virus inside can be destroyed. And just like that, the trail goes cold.
The detective work doesn't even stop there. The teams also go, underground. They test sewage. This is called environmental surveillance, and it is brilliant. It lets them find the virus circulating silently in a community, sometimes weeks before it actually paralyzes a child. It's a critical early warning system.
So finding the virus is one huge challenge. But fighting it? That's a whole other story. And right now, that fight is happening in some of the most complex and dangerous places you can imagine, like the Gaza Strip.
Just look at this number. It's incredible. In the middle of an active conflict, health workers managed to vaccinate more than 500,000 children during the second round of an emergency campaign in Gaza. That is an absolutely heroic effort. But you have to understand what they were up against. We're talking explosions at clinics, constant bombardments, huge numbers of people being displaced. And even with all their courage, security issues often meant they couldn't get to certain areas, and thousands of kids were still missed. This is the reality of this final battle. So to overcome these insane challenges, the teams had to get creative and adapt. They used a mix of strategies. They set up fixed sites at big, busy health centers, but they also deployed these agile, mobile teams that could navigate crowded streets and get to really remote areas. That kind of flexibility was absolutely key to reaching as many kids as they did.
Now, let's zoom back out, because all of this heroism on the ground is running up against a new global problem, a shrinking budget for global health. You could say the final boss battle has a sudden and very serious financial plot twist.
This graph shows a really troubling trend. Basically, global health aid is projected to drop sharply. As donor countries start facing their own pressures at home, the funding that powers programs like the polio eradication effort is becoming a lot less certain.
And here's exactly what that looks like for the Global Polio Eradication Initiative, or GBI. They're facing major cuts. An 18% cut for the last 2 countries where polio is endemic, a 26% cut for outbreak response, and a massive 34% cut to that detective surveillance network we just talked about.
These are serious reductions that could threaten all the progress that's been made. So, how do you fight the final boss on a tighter budget? You get smarter. You get more focused. The GPI's new plan is all about making tough choices. It means targeting the highest risk areas with laser precision, preserving only the most essential surveillance functions, and putting every single dollar where it will have the biggest possible impact. It's a really high-stakes balancing act.
This new strategy basically means fighting two different wars at the same time. The first war is against the original wild polio virus, which is now backed into a corner in just two countries, Afghanistan and Pakistan. The second war is against something called variant polio. This is a form that can pop up in places with low vaccination rates. So that requires a totally different, rapid response strategy in the world's most vulnerable spots.
And for that second fight against variant polio, the battle map has become much clearer. The new strategy is focusing resources intensely on two key regions where this virus is most persistent, the Horn of Africa and the Lake Chad Basin. This is where the risk is greatest, and this is where that fight absolutely has to be won.
So you take all of this, the incredible detective work, the battles on the ground, the new, smarter global strategy, and it's all leading to one single moment. The finish line is finally in sight, but it's going to demand one last truly unified push from everyone. And this is who is powering that final push. It's the millions of frontline health workers, people like this woman in Pakistan. They are the true heroes of this story, the ones navigating these immense challenges day in and day out.
So in the end, what's it going to take to win? Well, the formula is actually pretty clear. We have to perfectly execute the plan to find every trace of the virus and vaccinate every single child. And just as important, we need the sustained political and financial will from the rest of the world to have their backs.
After all these years, after all the money and the science and the sacrifice, the mission has never, ever wavered. It really just boils down to this one simple, profound promise: to reach every last child.
The strategy is smarter than ever. The tools are in place. The health workers on the front lines are more dedicated than anyone could imagine. Everything is ready to make history. The only question left is, will the world come together to deliver that final decisive push across the finish line?